Friday edition of Orange and Blue today, and we're coming with the thunder, and we're coming with some controversy, Mace, because I don't understand why some people out there think when we say running back is a larger need for the Broncos than people think, there's some who do the old man Simpson and shake their fist at the cloud.
Yes, but the thing is, you have to take an honest look at what this team was last year, how it got there, and where it fell short. And the thing is, it's almost like there are some players that are popular, and it's like, well, oh, they're sacred cows, right? And this is nothing personal,
No.
but Javonte Williams last year simply was not good enough. 3.6 yards a carry, and he had the lion's share of the work on the ground. More carries than Jaleel McLaughlin and Samaje Perine combined. And when you average 3.6 yards a carry behind an offensive line that is third in the league in in run block win rate, if you do that, that doesn't add up. That's unacceptable. And you had Perine, he averaged 4.5 yards a carry. Jaleel McLaughlin, 5.4 yards per carry. There were gaps there. There were opportunities there. And between Javonte not knowing whether he's going to be the same coming off of his horrific knee injury in 2022, Javonte being in the final year of his contract, so the position is in flux a little bit long-term potentially. That's why I'm not saying in round one, but when you get to even round three and definitely day three of the draft, running back is very much on the Broncos' radar.
Yeah, it very much should be, especially if there's a young quarterback, Mace. I mean, I only took 2 minutes to get into the quarterback conversation, but they need to upgrade. They need more talent in the running back room. It has nothing to do with Javonte. We all hope he can be the same, but he's probably never going to be the same. And behind that offensive line, and I'll also say this about Jaleel McLaughlin, I think he's kind of where he's at. There's a little bit more there if a quarterback can get him cleaner passes in terms of, those screens and stuff out of the backfield. There's more meat on the bone there. But I do not think he's got the same capability of a Phillip Lindsay, because Phillip Lindsay kept his feet upon contact. Jaleel, you give him a shoulder and a guy like flies out. So I don't think he's the same as Lindsay, even though I was guilty multiple times last year of saying he's like Phillip Lindsay. Well, not really, not from studying the film and going back, with a fine tooth comb.
But the only way Jaleel McLaughlin is going to play more is he's going to have to learn to pass protect.
Yep.
And at 5'7", 187, that's a difficult ask. There's only so much you can do technique-wise when you are that frame. If he can't work himself to an acceptable level, then that means basically his future is going to look a lot like his rookie season, where he's used situationally and as a change of pace, but isn't a potential primary back. And I think with Samaje Perine, the Broncos found a nice niche for him there when he kind of working as, almost like your closer, but somebody who you could put in late, had some fresher legs, has pass catching ability. So he's got a specific role, but you're kind of looking for that all-round back here if Javonte Williams can't figure it out, can't get on the right track. And yeah, you can find those guys into day three, the players that we're talking about who could be on the Broncos' radar. I think these are very much, maybe round three, but definitely some round 4, round 5 type of players. And we know that some have been brought in by the Broncos in recent times.
Right. We know that Blake Watson's one of those. We'll get to him in a little bit, but I want to start with Braylon Allen, because you mentioned Samaje Perine, and you're a big believer in Braylon Allen. I enjoy his game. I think he's a little more Brandon Jacobs, maybe, which that's not a diss at all whatsoever, but he's a larger back who runs kind of like a smaller back at times. Maybe not as much pop as you would think from a man his size, but still very difficult to bring down when he gets ahead of steam. You mentioned Perine, Mace. If they draft Braylon Allen, now projected in Dane Brugler's The Beast, 3rd to 4th round, it's about where I had him. I had him as a 4th round grade, but he could go in the 3rd. You pick up that guy on late day 2 or early day 3, Now, P. Ryan's job is in trouble, and even Javonte's job is in trouble. Allen has starting capability, and he's not the only third or fourth round back that has starting capability in this class.
Well, he's 6'1", 235. When he gets ahead of steam, he is incredibly difficult to bring down. He's also only 20 years old. I mean, this is an extremely young back with plenty of tread left on his tires. I mean, look, the things you'd like to see him be a bit more aggressive. Like, the thing is, at his size, you want him bowling with the ability to bowl over people. I think he has that. But he has only shown it in short bursts. It hasn't been as consistent as you'd like. But you're also talking about somebody who does have pass catching ability, is already an above average pass protector. And look, that's going to be a way that you play in Sean Payton's offense, and a way that you help out potentially a young quarterback is being a plus player in pass pro. And he can do that. And he can accumulate yards after contact. What you don't see is him bowling over people. What you do see when he gets ahead of steam is bouncing off of people. And so that's an example of him using his size. He can turn an intermediate run into a big one by bouncing off a potential tackler. You know, this is a guy that I think literally and figuratively there's a lot of meat on the bone here for Braylon Allen that you can get. But I think the thing is, you've got to kind of counsel him to take advantage more of the things that are there, and have just a little more burst and aggressiveness when he goes through the hole.
Part of it might be the design of Wisconsin. You and I can have this conversation. Maybe others can't, but like, I remember when Melvin Gordon came out, and 70% of his carries were outside the tackles, because just the way that power, student body left, student body right. With Allen, I get a similar feeling, because when Gordon got in the league, it's almost like he wanted to prove he could run inside. It's like, hey, Mel, we got it, buddy. And with Allen, I kind of feel the same way of like, okay, it's kind of the system of what they're asking him to do on some of those wider runs. So he's looking for those rushing lanes and attacking the edge, taking it to the corner stores, what scouts call it. I think in the pros, you can teach him to be intent up the middle and take what's there.
And it's funny you make the Melvin Gordon comparison, because, I mean, for one thing, he's got 20 pounds on Gordon. They're actually the same height. Braylon Allen's 20 pounds bigger. Melvin Gordon, it actually took a year before he really kind of figured it out. That first year with the San Diego Chargers wasn't all that productive. You get into year 2, year 3, he really started to emerge as a consistent back. And also a strength of Melvin Gordon was always in the red zone, right? That, the fumbles became an issue really later on in his career. But one thing that he was always good at doing was in finding space, whether it was in the pass game or as a runner in the red zone. And I think Braylon Allen has some of that same sort of ability as well. And I don't think you're talking about the fumble thing. That's knock on wood. I feel like the problem is, we mentioned Melvin Gordon. I think Broncos fans get the shakes because of the fumbles.
Right.
But, the truth is, Melvin Gordon, the first 2 years he was in Denver, although that the fumble rate did start to spike a little bit, at least in terms of the timeliness in 2021. But his first 2 years as a Bronco, he was actually really productive, even though in both cases you had Philip Lindsay the first year and you had Javonte Williams the second year. He was part of a committee. But the thing is, people love Philip Lindsay. People love Javonte Williams. Melvin Gordon was always the more effective part of the committee when he was in Denver. It's always very interesting.
Don't say that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at the numbers.
It's just science, right?
I'm sorry. This is kind of objective, but those first 2 years until the fumbles really overtook him when they brought him back in 2022, Melvin Gordon was pretty effective. And I think there's a similar potential there for Braylon Allen as well if you bring him in. 3rd, 4th round back, but I mean, you can't coach speed at 235 pounds. That's the thing.
Right.
It's like you can't. And he does have that. He does have that getaway speed when he gets
going. Look at his
going.
feet.
It's just getting him there. Oh, I mean, part of the thing with the feet. That's why they moved him from defense. He got recruited on the defensive side, but then they moved him over to running back. And I mean, and he flourished. And again, also, man, 20 years old. I mean, this guy there's a lot left. You're not talking about a running back you're bringing at 23 with a heavy workload. No, he comes in plenty fresh, even though he comes from a Wisconsin program that did use him quite a bit. So yeah, not a first rounder, not a second rounder, probably borderline third, fourth rounder, but I think somebody who would fit what Sean Payton wants to do.
Yeah, and there's not a first rounder in this class, but there is first round talent. Allen could certainly pay off like that. But Mace, it's a Friday. I'm going to go Fiddler on the Roof on you because of tradition.
Yes.
I love the tradition every year of I put together my reports, and then in April, when I take a breath, I then look and what's Dane Brugler say? What's Matt Waldman say? What's Daniel Jeremiah say? And when Daniel Jeremiah comes out and says his favorite running back's Marshawn Lloyd, which is my favorite running back, then I get my heart gets all of Twitter because I'm like, I love Marshawn Lloyd. You mentioned fumble rate. I'll look at his hand size, 8 3/4 hand size. So fumble rate, that could be an issue. We can bring up Jalen Wright from Tennessee in this conversation, but I look at Marshawn Lloyd because okay, you've got some power with Javonte, obviously, and you've got Water Bug, Jaleel McLaughlin, like that's awesome, and P. Ryan if he makes a team, whatever. Like they need a home run threat, a hitter, and a guy with some size. We all love Jaleel, but the lack of size is still there. When you look at Marshawn Lloyd at 220, can run like the wind, can be a big play threat. When you look at Jalen Wright, he's not Alvin Kamara, okay? He's not, but he's 210 pounds, runs a 4.3 40. I want that sort of fumbling aside, fix that 5 points of pressure, but I want that big play ability that both a Jalen Wright and a Marshawn Lloyd would bring to the table for the Broncos.
Yeah, as well. And another guy that I like that has some potential there is Ray Davis out of Kentucky. Another player who's got some burst to him. Although I think he tucks in on the draft board behind those, and Ray Davis, maybe somebody you're talking about more in the round 4, round 5, which is fine. Like, I mean, I can see why you're so excited about Marshawn Lloyd, though. And and then you go to Jalen Wright for a minute. I mean, that's where there's we talked about Wisconsin backs. So I think also let's talk about Tennessee backs because I think Jalen Wright has some, even though we don't helmet scout here, I think there's some things that he has in common with Alvin Kamara, which I think is why he's worth discussing, even though the draft price on Jalen Wright may mean that relative to what the Broncos have in draft capital, not picking until the third round, he may be a little bit out of the Broncos' range there when they pick in the third round.
Yeah, and we'll see about that. And people say, well, wait a second, Kamara was a third round pick.
Yep.
I mean, I feel like we're talking about tight ends. There's been so many great backs Terrell Davis, everybody, come on. Like, there's been so many great backs that are late day 2, early day 3. That's why Marshawn Lloyd, Braylon Allen, these guys are all great potential for the Broncos. You mentioned Davis there as well. I'd say he wastes a little too much motion. Like, he's certainly got the explosiveness, but I like a back who's a little more sharp with what he does. And Davis, he likes to play that juke move a little bit too much. It's like when you're playing Madden, that guy just keeps using the same button. And you're like, I'm just going to tackle you. So Davis, and a great story with Davis as well, which again, in the Athletics and Dane Brugler's The Beast, the greatest asset is you get to read about these players' backgrounds, which is always fascinating. Right. Look up what Ray Davis has gone through in his life. He's been through the crucible. He's ready to make it in the pros. And then we get to Blake Watson from Memphis. Blake Watson, where's Dane got him at here? He's probably a 6th or 7th round pick. Okay. I'm a little bit higher on Blake than Dane is. I got him with a 5th round grade, but a Memphis back, again, not helmet scouting, but a Memphis back. We look at the Memphis backs in this league, and let's start with Tony Pollard. Guys that can receive, guys that are big play threats. You look at everything that Watson did. We saw him down at the Shrine Bowl. He's a very impressive player, but he's got speed, agility, vision, hands. There's really not a lot of dings, in my opinion, on a Blake Watson, who, if you wait until the 6th round, if you're the Broncos, again, that's a starter potential you could get in the 6th.
The two guys that I like, round 6, round 7, are both guys that we saw down at the Shrine. Blake Watson, who's 5'9", 189, and Jaden Sheridan out of Monmouth, who I think is being downgraded a little bit because, again, your helmet scouting, your level scouting, right? But they're both about the same. But the same. Sheridan's a little bit lighter and smaller. He's 5'8", 187. Watson's 5'9", 189. But these are both players that have breakaway ability. And the thing I love about both of them, watch their feet.
Mm-hmm.
Quick feet. And with both of them, in watching Sheridan, when you see him, this is the guy he's going to be able to cut effectively. You can see it because he kind of gets those feet set quickly and he can pivot. And Blake Watson has the same kind of thing. And yeah, in these cases, you're talking about running backs who can come in and start. Now, that being said, one of the things that if you're looking at them, I just gave you weight figures that are very similar to that of Jaleel McLaughlin, 187. So the question then becomes, can they become at least adequate in the pass protection game? And that, again, I don't think we have the questions. And I think this is what separates the backs in the middle rounds from the backs in the late rounds. One of the factors is when we're talking about those middle round backs, and you talk about Braylon Allen's 235, right? But most of them are in the 210, 215 range. You know that they have the body type to kind of hold up in pass pro. You get to the Watsons and the Sheridans, not necessarily that body type. So I think that's a reason why you say, okay, a little bit more of an incomplete package. Can they develop that? It's possible that they can, just like it's possible that Jaleel McLaughlin could. You know what? And if you end up having a platoon that was, Blake Watson and Jaleel McLaughlin, I think you could go with that. I think there's a chance that at least one of them becomes an adequate pass protector. And if that's the case, that's your primary, and then the next guy is your relief.
Yep, and you're going to use those short passes as long handoffs, and they're both the receiving threats when the quarterback sets them up properly. I mean, again, it's just science. It makes a lot of sense. Add playmakers and add more running backs. You love Javonte. We love Javonte. I don't know if he'll ever be the same. Samaje's fine. Jaleel's got some, still meat on the bone, but there's a need here. Now I'm going to scare you, Mace, and I'm going to excite you at the same time. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Bring it on.
I had a dream that the Kansas City Chiefs drafted Bucky Irving, and that's scary. Okay. When you think about that sort of playmaker from Oregon on that offense with Pat Mahomes, that's scary. But if the Broncos stay at 12 and get Bo Nix, you know who I want? I want Bucky Irving. If we're talking about playmakers, and he's a slot receiver, basically. So it's like you kill two birds with one stone because he's listed as an RB, but you and I have watched him. He's more of a slot receiver, the kind of plays running back. And that sort of, imagine that as a joker. The joker isn't just a tight end. Remember, Alvin Kamara was a joker, okay? But imagine Bucky Irving, Bo Nix back there running the Sean Payton system, right? I'm getting chills. You can't see it, but imagine that. And then you've got Bucky. What is he? I don't know. What's he declaring? And it's all about the declaration of influence. You're trying to influence a defense by how you declare with your package. If you see Bucky Irving, you're going to think defensively that's an RB, but he's actually playing a slot role. So imagine a backfield where Javonte's and Bo Nix is in the shotgun. Shocker, because he's not great under center. Javonte has one side, Bucky Irving on the other. What are you going to do?
I love it, man. I love that I love that notion. You know what else I love about Bucky Irving? He's reliable. You know how many times Bucky Irving fumbled in college? One. Okay, there was one. When he ran the ball. 486 carries, one fumble. Okay? Trustworthy. You're giving me chills because I'm thinking about how familiarity could maybe help if you do draft Bo Nix, can help him along. So imagine if for a moment you've got him with a familiar running back who's kind of, again, joker, not really a true running back. So familiar pass catching target, potentially a familiar center if Alex Forsythe wins the job. You've got a great chance to kind of grow together, right? But you also, I think, give Bo Nix a chance to be comfortable. By the way, it's interesting how sometimes we'll refer to quarterbacks like by their first name or their last name. But somehow when you say Bo Nix, it's just like you say the full name.
Maybe that's his name.
Bo Nix. So short. I think we don't say if they if they draft Michael Penix Jr., I think you're saying like MPJ, or Penix.
Penix, yeah.
Another MPJ in Denver, right? To go with Michael Porter Jr. But with Bo Nix, I don't think anyone's saying like Nix a lot. I think everyone's just saying Bo Nix, Bo Nix, Bo Nix. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is the way my brain works sometimes. But
Hey, the Broncos might be saying Bo Nix at 12 and Bucky Irving. I do not want. It's different than the Pacheco thing, Mace, but I do not want the Chiefs to get another weapon.
Yeah.
Okay, like the NFL, y'all got to stop with this. Why are the Chiefs so great? Because you all keep letting them get these weapons. So, like Bucky Irving would be a weapon for that team.
Yeah.
How do you prevent it? You get him, and then Javonte still gets to do his Javonte stuff, and you get competition with Jaleel. Although Jaleel's not a slot, Bucky Irving's a slot.
He's not. No, he's
so
not.
You get a more dynamic version. And again, he's third, fourth round grade. So you're getting a value player with plenty of upside in your scheme that's versatile and dangerous. I love it.
Absolutely dangerous. 6.3 yards per carry last year, 7.4 yards per reception. Just extra. He has space, takes advantage of it. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be averaging 6.3 yards per carry, but look, we came in the top of the show telling you Jaleel McLaughlin 5.4, Samaje Perine 4.5, behind the third best run blocking offensive line in the NFL. It may not be third best as you're moving on from Lloyd Cushenberry and putting in a new center. So you might have an issue there. Although, Quinn Miners is going to be a year older. You'd think he'd be a year better. And for all Mike McGlinchey's faults sometimes, he's a very good run blocker on that right side.
Yeah.
So I still think you're talking about a top 5 run blocking offensive line. There are going to be holes there. That's where vision matters. It's where burst matters. And I think with these players, you're talking about guys who, if Javonte can't take that next step, can offer some improvement to the room. And oh, by the way, if you're making your long-term plan, you need to be prepared to pass the baton here at running back. Because I think that realistically, the chances of Javonte signing a contract to come back for 2025, I think they're pretty slim at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's not football business. It's the business of football, and it's not the National Feelings League. It's the National Football League. I had Javonte as my number 1 running back over Najee Harris. I mean, come on. Nobody loves Javonte more than I do. And I'm saying, like, you just can't rest on your laurels and hope and wish that he comes back. Like, you have to be ready in case he doesn't come back.
By the way, there was a whole comment about from coming out of Sean Payton's press conference in Orlando that you and I were at. The whole thing of, when he was asked what the offense needed to do to score more points, he talked about that, they got to have fewer sacks. He kind of threw Russell Wilson under the bus. Yeah, but you know what he dropped in right after that at the end of the comment? Was they have to run the ball better.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's a message.
There's
a clear message there. Yep.
He knows. He knows why. He's seeing the same. He's seeing the same things that we saw, and he saw that Javonte wasn't hitting the holes as effectively as he needed to, and didn't have the same burst. Great story, phenomenal story. Do I think he can be better this year? Yes, but I would also say this: with that injury on his ledger, the chances, it's so sad, and this is, again, this hurts to say, but that injury. That was a career-altering injury, not a career-ending, but a career-altering, and it's such a shame because I think until that point, I could have seen an 8-year run for Javonte here in Denver. After that, and then based on what we saw last year, maybe he was rushed back a little bit, but I didn't see that, and that's why. And you've got to make sure you're covered, and that's why. You start looking at the running backs in this draft, and even though it's not a class that's setting off fireworks, we just gave you some names of guys who I think are going to be plus players. Kind of like last year, we were telling you about Keaton Mitchell out of East Carolina, and look what he did for Baltimore. Okay,
Tyjae Spears, look what he did in Tennessee. Like, there's some talent in the mid rounds, and
there is.
I mean, man, it's just tough. I was envisioning multiple 1,000-yard seasons for Javonte, and he might never get there. So. Well, it's a Friday. Don't want to end on a bummer, Mace. So, how are you?
I'm okay.
Good?
I'm great.
We're good. All right.
I'm good. We're. You know what? 2 weeks from now, we may have answers, or we may have more questions about the quarterback spot because we're recording this on Friday. 2 weeks from this point, the Broncos may have their first round quarterback, or it might be like, okay, what do we do now? You and I may have to make sure we do a late night show after day one. I know you're on the radio Thursday night of the draft. I'm going to be out at Broncos headquarters, Centura Hill Training Center, but we may have to circle back after everything is done and just chop it up deep into the night because no matter what they do, I think we're going to have some questions.
Yes, that is correct. He is Andrew Mason. Mace, everyone out there, have a great weekend. Follow Mace on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey. But first, our YouTube response has been awesome. We appreciate you all so much for helping to grow the channel. We're already over 10,000 subscribers. Let's make it 20. Let's make it 30. Let's keep that train going. And about 50% of you out there watching are not subscribing. So please help us out. And how can they do that, Mace?
Real simple. Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you never miss a vid. That's correct. He's Mace and I am Cease. We are orange and blue today, and we love you guys. We appreciate you very much. He's Mace. I'm Cease. OBT is a BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty?